Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of a vast, unexplored wilderness. The path ahead is not always clear and the terrain is rough. Yet something deep within you stirs with anticipation. This journey, though challenging, holds the promise of something extraordinary. It is a journey of transformation, of being shaped, refined, and elevated into the person you were always meant to be. But here's the truth. This journey is not something you walk alone. There is a divine hand that guides every step, orchestrating each moment with perfect wisdom and love. Today, we're going to explore the incredible process of transformation that God has designed for your life. It is a journey that moves beyond the ordinary, a journey that leads to an elevation of purpose, character, and responsibility. Along the way, we'll discover how God works in us, through us, and for us, shaping us to reflect His glory and to serve His people. But this isn't just about personal growth. It's about becoming part of a greater purpose, one that impacts not just your life, but the lives of everyone you encounter. It's about trusting in God's perfect timing, surrendering to His plan, and embracing the challenges that will refine your heart and elevate your spirit. I invite you to take this journey with me today. Open your heart to the truth that God has a plan for you far beyond what you can imagine. You are not here by accident. The transformation you seek is already underway. Together, let's dive into the process of elevation and understand the powerful ways in which God is at work, preparing you for something greater than you could ever dream. Stay with me until the end, because this is the moment where your life begins to change, and your purpose becomes clearer than ever before. The humbling process is a cornerstone in the journey of transformation, particularly in the divine context. Often when we think of elevation or progress, we imagine ascending to higher states of success, wealth, or status. However, true elevation in God's eyes begins with a deep and personal humbling. This humbling is not a one-time event, but a continual process. It starts when we acknowledge that, in our own strength, we cannot achieve the true purpose for which we were created. To elevate us to the next level of our destiny, God often first has to strip away our reliance on self. Humility in this context is not weakness, it is the quiet strength of surrender, an active choice to yield control to a higher power. God calls us to trust in Him completely, not because we are incapable, but because in our submission we are making space for something far greater than we could imagine for ourselves. The Bible, for example, speaks of how God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. In this passage, we are reminded that pride has no place in the divine journey. Humility, on the other hand, opens the door to grace and transformation. Often this humbling process is uncomfortable. It requires us to let go of our own plans, desires, and ambitions. When we are accustomed to controlling the trajectory of our lives, being stripped of that control can feel like a loss, but it is in fact the very thing that prepares us for elevation. It is as though we are in a cocoon, confined by circumstances or a sense of helplessness, only to emerge into something new, something far more beautiful than before. The process of humbling often involves moments of discomfort or even suffering. These moments are not punishments, but rather divine tools used to mold us. Think of the proverbial crucible that tests the metal. When our faith is tested, when we are challenged beyond what we can bear, we may question the purpose of such trials. Yet, they serve to refine our character, to remove the impurities in our hearts, and to soften the hardness that life's disappointments can build in us. In this stripping away, God helps us recognize that true strength comes from Him alone. Humbling also opens us up to the realization that the plans we make, are often not the plans that God has for us. This is difficult for many because it challenges our sense of independence. We live in a world that prizes individual achievement and self-sufficiency, but God's way is different. He desires us to acknowledge our dependency on Him, not out of weakness, but out of trust. This kind of trust involves relinquishing the idea that we can control our outcomes or dictate the path we must take. In that moment of surrender, we align ourselves with God's greater plan, knowing that His understanding surpasses ours and that His love and wisdom guide us toward what is truly good. In humility, we also come to understand that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Our purpose is no longer self-centered, but aligned with divine calling. This shift in perspective is often gradual, and it begins by recognizing the inherent value of surrendering to a higher power. The humbling process doesn't diminish who we are. Rather, it elevates us to a new realm of understanding, where our strength lies not in our own abilities, but in our relationship with God. This is the first step in true transformation. The testing of character is an integral part of the divine transformation process, serving as a powerful mechanism through which God refines and molds us into the individuals He desires us to become. Transformation in the eyes of God is not merely about external success or outward accomplishments. It is about the inner work that shapes who we are at the core. This work happens through trials and challenges that test our character, pushing us to grow in ways we cannot anticipate. At the outset, it's important to understand that trials are not a punishment, but a divine tool for growth. Just as a goldsmith places gold into the fire to remove impurities and make it more valuable, God allows us to go through hardships that serve to refine our hearts. The refining process involves the stripping away of the aspects of our character that are not aligned with God's purpose for us. These aspects may include selfishness, impatience, pride, or unforgiveness. As we face these tests, they expose areas of weakness and give us the opportunity to rely on God for strength. In this context, character testing doesn't just mean enduring difficult situations, but learning how to respond to them. It's in these moments of trial that our true character is revealed. Will we react with anger or frustration, or will we respond with patience and trust in God's plan? How we choose to react in difficult times defines our growth and lays the foundation for future transformation. The trials themselves may not be pleasant, but the lessons they teach are invaluable. They push us beyond our comfort zones and compel us to lean on God for guidance, wisdom, and resilience. The testing of character also builds spiritual maturity. As we face adversity, we learn to develop virtues such as perseverance, endurance, and faith. Each challenge brings an opportunity to practice trust in God's provision and timing. In the book of James it is written that the testing of our faith produces perseverance, and perseverance leads to maturity. James 1:2-4. This process teaches us to rely on God's strength rather than our own, and helps us grow in understanding that His ways are higher than ours. Moreover, character testing often reveals what is truly in our hearts. It forces us to confront the deep-seated fears, insecurities, and desires that we might otherwise ignore. In these moments, we must decide whether to surrender these areas to God, allowing Him to purify and reshape them, or to cling to our old ways. The testing of character creates an opportunity for self-reflection, helping us see where we need to change and grow. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, offering us a chance to repent, change, and move forward with renewed purpose. Additionally, the testing of character prepares us for the greater responsibilities and blessings that come with divine elevation. God does not entrust significant influence or success to those who have not been tested and shaped by trials. As we undergo these challenges, we build the inner fortitude and wisdom necessary to handle the opportunities that will come with our elevation. This is a process that cannot be rushed, for character must be developed over time, and each trial contributes to the overall strength of our spiritual foundation. Through the testing of character, God does not merely shape us into better people, He prepares us to fulfill the purposes He has ordained for our lives. These challenges are not random. They are divinely orchestrated to create in us a reflection of His image, helping us to become more aligned with His will. The role of surrender in the process of divine transformation cannot be overstated. Surrender is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness or passivity, yet in the context of God's transformative work, surrender is one of the most powerful acts we can undertake. It is through surrender that we acknowledge our limitations and open ourselves to the fullness of God's plan for us. It is the gateway through which true transformation begins, and the key to experiencing the elevation that God has set aside for our lives. At its core, surrender is the act of letting go of control. We live in a world that encourages self-reliance, independence, and the pursuit of personal desires. The idea that we must relinquish control and trust in something greater than ourselves can be a challenging notion, especially when we are accustomed to determining the course of our lives. But divine transformation requires a surrender of not only our will, but our heart, mind, and actions. It is a conscious decision to yield to God's guidance, acknowledging that His plans for us far exceed our own understanding. To surrender involves an active release of our desires, ambitions, and plans. This is not to say that we abandon all dreams, but rather that we hold them loosely, allowing God to redefine them according to His will. When we surrender, we give up the illusion that we can dictate our own path, and instead place our trust in God's sovereignty. This act of trust is essential, for it acknowledges that God's understanding of our future is far more profound and perfect than our own limited perspective. One of the most difficult aspects of surrender is the fear of losing control or facing the unknown. When we release our grip on the plans we have carefully made, we are stepping into uncertainty. It is natural to fear the loss of control, especially when the future appears unclear. Yet it is in this very surrender that God works His miracles. When we trust that He holds the future, we are free to walk in faith, knowing that every step He leads us to is part of His greater purpose. This trust is what enables us to embrace the process of transformation fully, without the constraints of anxiety or doubt. Surrender also involves recognizing our dependence on God for everything, our strength, our wisdom, our provision. It is a reminder that we are not self-sufficient, but are deeply reliant on God's grace and power. When we surrender, we acknowledge that we cannot navigate the complexities of life on our own. This is a humbling realization, but it is also a liberating one. For in our surrender, we are empowered by God's strength, not our own. Additionally, surrender is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Each moment of surrender builds on the previous one. As God transforms us, He invites us to surrender more and more. Our desires, our plans, our very selves. With each layer of surrender, we become more aligned with God's will and more prepared for the elevation He has in store. This surrender, however, is not passive. It is an active decision to trust God daily, to submit to His leading, and to place our lives in His capable hands. Ultimately, the role of surrender in transformation is about moving from self-centeredness to God-centeredness. It is about recognizing that God's purposes for us are greater than any personal ambition. Through surrender, we make room for God's plan to unfold, knowing that His plans are always for our good and His glory. The power of divine timing is an essential aspect of the transformation process, one that often requires patience, trust, and an understanding that God's sense of timing far exceeds our own. While we live in a world that prioritizes immediate results and quick fixes, God's ways are different. His timing is perfect, and He orchestrates every aspect of our lives with precision, ensuring that the right moments for transformation and elevation come at the right time. Understanding this truth is crucial in the journey of becoming the person God has destined us to be. At the heart of divine timing is the recognition that God knows what is best for us, even when it doesn't align with our desires or expectations. We often find ourselves eager for change or elevation, hoping for immediate results, but God's timing operates according to a divine rhythm that is often outside of our comprehension. It is easy to become frustrated or discouraged when things don't unfold according to our own timeline. We may question why certain opportunities haven't come, or why we are still in a season of waiting or preparation. However, God's timing is never random or arbitrary. It is always intentional and purposeful. Divine timing teaches us to trust in God's plan, even when the waiting period seems long or uncertain. This waiting is not wasted time, it is a time of growth, refinement, and preparation. During this period, God is working in us to develop the character and qualities necessary for the elevation that He has promised. In many cases, we are not ready for the blessing or responsibility that God has in store for us, and His timing ensures that we are adequately prepared to handle it when it arrives. Just as a tree needs time to grow strong roots before it can bear fruit, so too do we need time to be grounded in faith and character before we can handle the elevation that God intends for us. Furthermore, divine timing often involves synchronizing our growth with other events, people, and circumstances that we may not even be aware of. God's plan unfolds in ways that align with His greater purpose, and our lives are woven into a larger tapestry that we may not fully understand. While we might focus on our personal journey, God's timing takes into account the intricate web of relationships, events, and opportunities that must align perfectly for the greatest impact. His timing ensures that everything happens when it needs to, in a way that will bring about the most fruitful outcome. Another important aspect of divine timing is the understanding that God's delays are not denials. There may be seasons in our lives when we feel like we're stuck or that God has forgotten us. During these times, it is easy to believe that the elevation we long for will never come. However, delays are often part of the process of preparing us for what lies ahead. God may delay certain blessings or opportunities, not because He is withholding them from us, but because He is ensuring that we are spiritually, mentally, and emotionally ready to handle them. His delays are a form of protection, keeping us from stepping into something too soon, or from facing challenges for which we are not yet equipped. Understanding divine timing also calls for patience and faith. It is easy to rely on our own efforts and to rush toward our goals, but the true elevation that God has in store for us comes when we are patient and allow His perfect timing to unfold. Through this patience, we learn to trust not only in God's ability to act on our behalf, but also in His wisdom to know the best time for action. The waiting process, then, becomes an integral part of the transformation as we surrender our need for control and trust in God's ultimate authority over our lives. The impact of transformation is far-reaching, extending beyond personal change to affect every aspect of our lives and the lives of those around us. When God transforms us, it is not merely an internal or superficial adjustment, but a deep, holistic change that alters how we see the world, how we interact with others, and how we understand our purpose. This transformation is not just for us, it has a ripple effect, influencing our relationships, our communities, and ultimately, the world. Understanding the impact of transformation is crucial for recognizing the fullness of God's work in our lives. One of the most profound impacts of transformation is the shift in our perspective. Before God's transformative work, we may view life through a lens of self-interest, driven by personal desires, ambitions, and fears. However, Once we undergo divine transformation, our perspective broadens. We begin to see life not as a series of isolated events, but as part of a greater divine narrative. We recognize that our lives are not our own, but are intricately woven into God's larger plan for the world. This shift in perspective leads us to place less emphasis on worldly concerns and more on eternal values such as love, service, and faith. The transformation that takes place in us enables us to see the bigger picture and understand our place within it. This new perspective also deeply affects our relationships. One of the hallmarks of transformation is the shift from selfishness to selflessness. As we become more aligned with God's purpose, we develop a greater capacity for love, compassion, and empathy. We begin to view others not as obstacles or competitors, but as fellow travelers on the journey of life. Our interactions with others are no longer driven by selfish motives, but by a desire to serve, uplift, and encourage. We become more patient, forgiving, and understanding, and these changes in our behavior create a positive, lasting impact on our relationships. As we transform, we become conduits of God's love, reflecting His character to the world around us. Another significant impact of transformation is on our sense of purpose. Before transformation, we may chase after goals that are temporary or fleeting, such as career success, material wealth, or social status. While these things are not inherently wrong, they do not fulfill the deeper longing for meaning that resides in every person. Through God's transformation, we come to understand that our true purpose lies in serving others, honoring God, and fulfilling the unique calling He has placed on our lives. This shift in purpose redefines success, moving it from personal achievement to living a life that aligns with God's will. Transformation clarifies our mission, leading us to pursue not what is easy or convenient, but what is eternal and significant. Additionally, the impact of transformation can extend to our communities and beyond. As we become more aligned with God's will, we are called to serve others, not only in word but also in action. A transformed individual is compelled to contribute to the well-being of their community, to make a difference in the lives of others, and to live in a way that reflects God's grace. This outward expression of transformation has the potential to inspire and uplift those around us, creating a ripple effect that extends far beyond our immediate circle. As we demonstrate the love, kindness, and grace we have received, we invite others to experience the same transformation in their lives. Lastly, the transformation God works in us prepares us for the responsibility that comes with elevation. The internal change that takes place prepares us to handle external blessings with humility and wisdom. God does not elevate us for our own benefit alone, but for the good of others and for the advancement of His kingdom. As we are transformed, we are equipped to bear the weight of greater responsibilities and to serve others in ways that reflect God's glory. The impact of this transformation is not just in our lives, but in the world around us, as we are called to be agents of change, bringing light and hope to a dark and broken world. A life of service and responsibility is the natural outgrowth of divine elevation. As God transforms and elevates us, the ultimate purpose of this elevation is not personal gain, but the ability to serve others and bear the responsibility of a greater calling. Elevation is not about acquiring status, wealth, or recognition. It is about being entrusted with more significant roles in God's kingdom, in using our increased influence for the betterment of others. In this sense, true elevation is less about being raised up and more about being made more capable of serving the needs of others, reflecting God's love and wisdom through our actions. When God elevates us, He opens doors to greater opportunities, but these opportunities come with increased responsibility. Elevation calls us to move from a focus on self to a focus on the welfare of others. It requires a mindset shift, away from personal ambition toward a life that is devoted to service. This means that the more God entrusts us with, the more we are called to give. As our influence grows, so does our duty to use it for the greater good, helping to meet the needs of those around us and to contribute positively to society. The responsibility that comes with elevation often involves using the gifts, talents, and resources God has given us in ways that reflect His heart. This might involve taking on leadership roles, serving in the community, or mentoring others, but it always involves putting the needs of others above our own. The Bible speaks of this principle in many places, such as in Mark 10:45, where it is written that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. As followers of Christ, we are called to model this same attitude of service, recognizing that the purpose of our elevation is not to glorify ourselves, but to honor God by serving His people. In many ways, the life of service that accompanies elevation is a reflection of Christ's own example. Throughout His life, Jesus demonstrated that true greatness is found in humility and service to others. The more we are transformed by God, the more we begin to resemble Christ, and this transformation leads us to a deeper commitment to serve. Elevation, therefore, is not a promotion for personal comfort, but a calling to extend grace, love, and support to those around us. It is about recognizing that the gifts and resources God provides are not for our exclusive benefit, but are meant to be shared with others. As we grow in our understanding of service, we also begin to recognize the weight of responsibility that comes with influence. Elevation often means that we will have a greater impact on the lives of those around us. The decisions we make, the words we speak, and the actions we take will carry more weight. This responsibility can be daunting, but it also offers an incredible opportunity to serve in ways that can change lives, heal wounds, and build up communities. Those who are elevated are called to lead with humility, to use their position to guide, encourage, and empower others, helping them reach their own potential and fulfill their God-given purposes.